Hello and welcome to this new episode of the FinTech Scotland podcast. Today's episode is on the topic of financial crime as we launch our new innovation call on the topic from our Financial Regulation Innovation Lab. So we're very excited because we've got so many strategy partners involved in this call. And I'm going to read from a list because the list is very long. We've got BT, Morgan Stanley, Aberdeen, HSBC, Lloyds Banking Group, TSB, Virgin Money, Barclays, Equifax, Fujitsu, and Dudley Building Society. And they're all involved in this program, ready to collaborate between themselves with experts and with fintechs leading in the space of financial crime. And if you're interested in participating as well, just go to fintechscotland.com and there's an application form under innovation calls. So this episode is a bit special as well because I won't be your host. And I'm very happy to welcome Charlotte Moir from BT, who will be interviewing a panel of experts on the topic. So Charlotte, it's over to you.
Thank you, Mikhail. Hi, everyone. I'm Charlotte Moir, and I am an account manager within BT, helping to serve our financial services customers. And I'm working to support FinTech Scotland on the FinCrime Innovation Project. As part of this, we are launching this brand new and very exciting FinTech Scotland Podcast Series, which is sponsored by BT as part of the FRIL. As part of this podcast series, we'll be meeting with experts in industry on a monthly basis to share knowledge and address some key issues that organisations are facing. For BT, this is really important to us as we understand that we play a pivotal part in protecting people across industry from fin crime. Through our solutions and as part of the programme, we want to ensure that BT are continually in a position to improve and support the industry. So, as we've mentioned, this is part of the FinCrime Innovation Programme, and we're very excited to announce that this is launching today as we speak on the 20th of November. Lauren is on the podcast and is going to speak a bit more about this shortly. However, in the meantime, we will also link some sign-up links to the website if you are interested in reading a little bit more about the programme and getting involved. So today's episode is going to kick off the series and it's going to contextualise fraud. So we're going to keep it quite a broad topic to begin with. The reason we chose this topic is because in 2023, we saw £460 million lost to APP fraud in the UK alone. And as many of you will be aware of, this led to the Payment Systems Regulator taking action. And on October 7th, we saw the introduction of the mandatory reimbursement scheme. This sets out that there will be new rules within faster payments, which should help strengthen our ability to tackle fraud. This also sets out that payment firms will be incentivised to take action, with both sending and receiving firms splitting the cost of reimbursement 50-50. It should ensure that customers are more protected under consistent standards, with faster reimbursement and also additional protections offered for vulnerable customers. So hopefully that will help set the scene a little bit for you. Today you'll see that we are joined by 3 exciting guests. So if you don't mind, I would like to ask you all to introduce yourself. Lauren, if we could kick off with you.
Sure, thanks Charlotte. Hi everyone, my name's Lauren Cassells and I'm a Research and Innovation Programme Manager within FinTech Scotland. So I'm responsible for leading the design and delivery of the Financial Crime Programme, which operates under the Financial Regulation Innovation Lab, FRIL, which is a co-run programme between FinTech Scotland, University of Glasgow and University of Strathclyde. So really excited to be discussing it today with Brian, Paddy and Charlotte.
Thank you, Lauren. And Brian?
Hi, I'm Brian. I'm the Chief Security Officer for BT's Consumer Division with its 30-odd million customers. And my day job is about working with the Security Division of BT and Consumer as a business unit, kind of kicking both ways, trying to get the business unit to do what we think it should do to protect its customers, its people, its data, its premises, and helping and getting security to be an enabler for the business. And in addition to that, I lead BT's anti-scams initiative. So that's my skin in the game on this one, trying to protect our customers from as much harm as possible, and at the same time promoting BT as the most trusted connector.
Thank you, Brian. Great to have you. Paddy?
Hi everyone, my name's Paddy O'Keefe. I am the Economic Crime Public and Private Partners Manager at Virgin Money. I'm new to banking as of February this year. Originally, I was within law enforcement, having spent 20 years with Northumbria Police, half of that time within the North East Regional Organised Crime Unit, and the last 5 years of my career focused on everything that is money laundering, economic crime and fraud, working with City of London, the National Economic Crime Centre, on what our national, regional and local responses to those threats look like. Within the bank, I lead on our engagement with public and private entities, how we share intelligence with law enforcement, how we develop our collective response, not just operating within a silo internally in the bank, but how we work with partners such as BT, how we engage with platforms such as FinTech Scotland, and how we move forward with law enforcement so that we can tackle these threats.
Thank you very much, Paddy. It's great to have you all on the call. So I'd like to kick off the content on the series. And Lauren, I would like to hand over to you first, if you don't mind, I know we've touched upon it, but to introduce a little bit more on the FinCrime FRIL in general, what some of the key objectives are and how both BT and Virgin Money are involved in this.
Yeah, of course. So FRIL is essentially an end-to-end delivery framework to mobilise research and innovation programmes around areas that have been identified as opportunities to drive economic development, but also achieve beneficial and responsible innovation across Scotland and more broadly the UK. So the way that the Financial Regulation Innovation Lab, FRIL, operates is across 4 tracks of activity. And the first of which is the Innovation Challenge stream, which is that is launching today for applications from November through to January. So for those that are listening in and that throughout the podcast are really interested in engaging, as Charlotte said, we'll be linking the application details for that. But that first track of activity is really an opportunity to get closer to the solutions that are across the market with this programme specifically on financial crime and fraud. But more broadly, it's an opportunity to bring those solutions more closer to the industry context and nuanced challenges that each organisation faces across the ecosystem. So it's a really, really interesting piece of work that's underpinned by the use cases that our industry subgroup surface. So Virgin Money and BT are 2 partners within that group that are surfacing and co-sponsoring use cases that are ecosystem-wide beneficial opportunities to drive innovation and solve challenges such as financial crime that really can't be solved by, one organisation or one specific solution in isolation. And then the other tracks of activity really take the topics of focus more broadly. So we have a knowledge exchange pillar, which is where opportunities such as this podcast and more broadly roundtables, workshops, seminars really come to fruition, because that allows for the more nuanced, maybe less technologically focused opportunities of exploration and collaboration to be explored. And we all know, again, that financial crime can't be solved purely by a technology platform, right? There's various other components within that jigsaw puzzle. And through that track of activity, it allows for the industry to come together cross-sectoral in a neutral playing field on non-competitive issues to discuss as a peer group what initiatives are taking place, where do we need to further position those. The third stream is around actionable research. So that is really where our university partners take leadership on, and they bring their expertise to the table to look at where actionable white papers need to be explored and delivered, led by those industry use cases, and an opportunity to really tap into those expertise and bring them to the fore across the programmes. And then finally, skills development. And again, this is where the university teams and colleagues really take a leading role and develop micro-credential courses that are available to industry to upskill in really quite complex areas of emerging technology or in the more thematic based courses as well. So it's a really exciting programme. And I guess the real call for action today is, especially as we are launching this programme as a UK-wide programme for the first time with Supertech West Midlands and with Greater Manchester Combined Authority, it's a call for action for the innovators across the ecosystem that really are driving trailblazing solutions and want to get closer to those industry challenge statements to apply and come on board with the programme. So that's end-to-end the framework. As I mentioned, Virgin Money and BT are with us on the subgroup, which is a very wide cross-sectoral representation group of use case partners. And it's really an exciting opportunity, as I say, for each of the industry partners to get closer to each other and understand where there is opportunities to collaborate more closely, as I say, with each other, but also with innovators in the ecosystem. So that's FRIL.
Thank you, Lauren. That's really helpful. And I think, like you say, your reference to the jigsaw puzzle piece is very accurate. I think what this really highlights is the importance of, cross-industry collaboration, and that the more kind of organisations and representation that we have as part of this, the better we can be, as a unit in tackling fraud. So that's a good call out there. Thanks, Lauren. And now I would like to discuss a little bit with Brian around BT's involvement within the innovation programme and why you feel this will be of benefit to both BT and some of our key partners.
Yeah, thanks, Charlotte. Look, for me, it's really simple. I'm charged with trying to protect 30 odd million people, trying to innovate, trying to work with regulators, work across industry, in fact, work across industries. And do you know what? It's never at lightning speed. And the frightening thing is that criminals do stuff in seconds that takes big companies, whether they be banks, whether they be telcos, whether they be techcos, months and years to do. So innovation is key. Innovation based off of use cases is key. We have to have those things, and we have to have these things at pace. So new ways of doing this, using new technologies, using new ideas, using new people, are incredibly exciting. And we need them all. And we need them now. We need them yesterday, and we're going to continue needing them because the landscape is, changing dramatically beneath us on a daily basis. We already see the use of AI by criminals. We already see the use of big data by criminals. And this is just as we're all thinking about it. And they're already doing it. They don't have the rule sets that we have. They don't have the legislation, the regulation that holds them back. That they don't have GDPR and all those things. So look, for me, it's an incredibly exciting opportunity. It's fantastic to be working with Lauren and indeed Paddy, and of course all of our other partners. It's a good day for us to be part of this, and I'm looking forward to some really interesting stuff coming out.
Brilliant. Thank you, Brian. And obviously you mentioned a lot of the benefits of this are kind of coming with the future state for how BT can prevent fraud. Could you share a little more about what BT do currently to tackle fraud, who you engage with and how you do that?
Yeah. So look, we have to take a multi-channel, multi-stakeholder approach to this. BT as a telco has a ringside seat to some stuff, that fraudsters do, but not all of the stuff that fraudsters do. And so our view is always limited. So we reach out to stakeholders across banking. I work with several of the banks directly through stakeholder groups like Stop Scams UK, work collectively with the likes of the National Cyber Security Centre, work along with people like the Home Office, trying to sort of bring us all together to come up with innovative ideas and to deploy those in the protection of our common customers. Some of it simply is the right thing to do. Other components of it as commercial opportunities. And we need to have room for both, in order to, turn the dial against, what is clearly a massive tide of attacks. And at the end of the day, we're all customers. We're all potential victims. And that's me, you, my mum, your dad, whoever. And so, we're very driven. We don't want to make bad money. We do want to do the right thing, and we do want to be trusted, because without trust, as a business, we have nothing. And I'm sure that applies as much to Paddy and his business as it does to mine.
Thanks, Brian. Completely agree. And then on that note, Paddy, I guess similar questions for you really would be around, firstly, what does your role look like, and how does Virgin Money look to tackle fraud as part of your role?
So I'm not going to take credit for our fraud response. It's not something I'm directly involved in, but I help to share that response with partners in my role. I think it's fair to say that, a bit like Brian's just said, the breadth of fraud is incredibly wide. I think sometimes the fraud narrative loses that when we hear about fraud in the media and hear about people who've been victim of fraud. It seems like it is personal and it is targeting specific people, when actually when you zoom out and you look at the data, it's pretty much targeting everybody. It feels very personal because it's an emotive crime. It's something that, you know, has a basis in emotion, where our own values, our own perspective on the world is often twisted against us by criminals in order to make their own gains. But if we consider how wide scale the fraud threat is, you know, we see large numbers of reporting. You know, Action Fraud is the national reporting system within the UK. Over the last couple of years, has seen reports in and around the sort of 1 million reports in a year sort of number, which is a terrible thing. But I would argue that the problem is much, much worse. So if you consider that fraud is often underreported, the Police and Crime Survey of England and Wales said that number is closer to 3 or 4 million. But again, if we move away from the figures and we think about this in real terms, there are 68 million people in the UK. If you take away 20% for the under 18s, accepting that that's an oversimplification and they can be victims of fraud too, you're at 54.4 million people in the UK. Now, if we consider fraud within the legislative framework, the Fraud Act of 2006 sets out 3 key factors. So the conduct has to be dishonest, the intention has to be to make a gain or cause a loss or the risk of a loss to another, and actually no gain or loss needs to take place. So if we sit here as, you know, the 4 of us, or the people who are listening to this call consider it in their own day-to-day lives, you know, how many times do you get a phone call that says you've been in a car accident that wasn't your fault, or a text message asking you to click a link so that you can have a package delivered, or if you open up the spam folder on your emails or your mobile phone and you see how many competitions that you've won in the last couple of days that you never entered. We actually need to start from this position that there's probably 100% saturation in UK adults of victims of fraud. Whether they suffer a financial loss or not is the difference. And that's where we're trying to make that impact, where we're trying to create more robust systems, whether that be through the telcos, whether that be through the banks, to reduce the likelihood of people suffering financial loss. And we work with our customers to raise their education and awareness. Within Virgin, we take a very data-driven approach to that. We look at the messaging that we're giving our customers, and we try to make sure that's targeted. So while fraud reporting recently has dropped, we have seen purchase scams rise, with 92% of them happening online. Well, often it's the younger generation, the late teens, early 20s, who've grown up with being very, very comfortable online, that fall victim to those frauds. So it's how do we make our messaging to them resonate with them and reach them? And, you know, contextually, the store network, when people go in, it's often older customers that might use the store network, more face-to-face opportunities for engagement, more time to be able to spend with them in a real human environment, raising awareness of fraud and the threats that poses.
Thanks, Paddy. Yeah, that's some interesting points, definitely. And just off the back of that then, why specifically did Virgin Money, or maybe you more specifically, choose to be involved in part of the Financial Regulation Innovation Lab within FinTech Scotland?
Well, I had my arm twisted by Lauren. Is the truth of the matter? Lauren and I have been around the fintech ecosystem for a few years now. Certainly, we first met on the back of the Northeast developing their strategy in response to the Khalifa report, and the ecosystem throughout the UK has continued to grow when it comes to fintech. The reason that I always take every opportunity I can to get involved is because fintech essentially is something that lives and breathes innovation. It's such a group of can-do people who are motivated because they see problems and they don't see problems, they see challenges and they see opportunities. They see ways in which it can be done better, and they try to, bring to market things that change the status quo. And we've already said the threat of fraud, the threat of economic crime is one that is ever changing. So having people in your corner that are always looking at the next opportunity and trying to stay ahead of change and ahead of these threats is absolutely critical.
I think as well, just on that point, Charlotte, because we've got the span of connections as we've grown FRIL, and obviously the Consumer Duty Programme that's just concluded, partnered with Supertech, West Mids, and now as we look forward to the Financial Crime Programme, we're partnering even more broadly across the UK with Greater Manchester Combined Authority. It's tapping into some of those different skill sets as well. So obviously, Paddy, you'll know this from your days in the sort of public sector side. There's so many initiatives and so many forums and, so many discussions to explore these things. But bringing that together and having a cohesive programme has allowed us to tap into a lot of different areas of expertise as well, which has been really interesting because we've started to explore areas and meeting, with colleagues across both your respective teams in areas that we hadn't initially set out to, for example, with the cybersecurity teams, with the digital threats, with, the quantum computing academics that are just, mind-blowingly intelligent and are looking at these risks in the frame of, okay, financial crime as a topic, but what does that look like in the immediate term over the next 5 years? What does it look like in 10 years? What is the 15-year horizon scanning picture? And it's just so interesting to be able to come together, as I say, not just in the Innovation Challenge stream with the fintechs that are developing the solutions here and now, but also with the broader ecosystem that are looking at, okay, how do we then make sure we stay ahead of those risks that are on the horizon, and how do we build them into the solutions and just bring that ecosystem closer together to make a difference, really. So it's been really great discussion. And I think for the innovators that do apply to come forward into the programme, the access that they get to these insights is just, I'm finding it fascinating. So I can only imagine how they would find it as they're developing their solutions too.
Yeah, thanks both. I completely agree. It's definitely an inspiring community to be part of, and looking forward to seeing kind of some of the solutions that are brought out the back of this as well. Thanks, Paddy, for sharing your overview there. I guess I'm interested to dive a little bit deeper in, we've all touched upon how important collaboration is in preventing and tackling fraud. What does that engagement and collaboration look like between Virgin Money and BT? Brian, do you want to start by calling out some of the initiatives and programmes that BT are part of that you interact with Virgin Money as part of?
Yeah, thanks, Charlotte. Look, we won't. So specific to BT and Virgin, Stop Scams UK is one of the key organisations here currently, and that is because it is the single opportunity that brings us and financial companies into the same room together to chew over, to work out new and innovative ways of tackling fraud. Put simply, what it also does is it allows us to recognise the limitations of what we can each see, and then from that work together to bring opportunities to share data, or share use cases, and subsequently share data so that we can actually make an impact. And that applies, in everything we do. Paddy mentioned the NECC earlier. We've been part of that. We'll all speak to the Home Office. Some things we've done in particular, Charlotte, I think that have been particularly useful have been the program that's now in development with CIFAS, which is where we and a bank realised that actually there was an opportunity to share the voice recordings of known scammers. And we did some experimentation there. Very, very, very quickly realised that if you could share the voice data sets, there's an opportunity to get ahead of the fraudsters and recognise them when they're dialing into your contact centres. That's now in business development with CIFAS, as I said. With the NCSC, through a proof of concept we did with Stop Scams UK, we were able to bring in data about criminal domains where banks were spotting criminals impersonating their brands and putting them directly under attack, and then bring them into BT and begin blocking them in as near real time as possible. Yeah. So, and that could be as little as 2 to 3 minutes. We do a lot of defensive stuff anyway, and we offer products and services to our customers to prevent fraud, but nobody at any point is going to stop the whole problem. So, that's about creating opportunities to share, insight that we each have to the betterment of our collective customers. So they're two, very high level and very simple cases of what we managed to do working collaboratively, even if not directly at the moment.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, that's helpful. And I think it's also worth calling it at this stage that BT obviously provide various fraud prevention solutions to protect our customers and enable them to support their customers. One of which Virgin Money have deployed in their contact centre, which analyses call data and caller behaviour to identify the likelihood of a fraudulent call as part of that. So that's another good one to call out as part of that partnership.
I think just building on what Brian said there, any collaboration starts because we've got an alignment in our values. So if both organisations are looking to protect their customers and they're looking to impact these threats, what we want to do is we want to protect those people who are vulnerable from fraud, from other financial crime, but we also want to disrupt the criminals involved in that. And if you consider the criminals having a quote unquote sort of business, I use that very reluctantly, and it's definitely the wrong term. But the best way in which we can disrupt them is through combating their communications networks and combating their financial structures and the money that underpins that business. So working collaboratively, sharing information between organisations and sharing that information then with law enforcement agencies allows us to cause real harm to those people who do harm to others.
Yeah, agree. Another question for the group then is around how do you each individually keep on top of these continuously evolving and changing updates, regulation? How do you ensure that innovation is kind of at the forefront of your mind in ensuring that yourself and your organisation remain protected? Lauren, would you like to kick off?
You'll be glad to know.
Scotland.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you'll be glad to know we've got a couple of use cases across the programme that do start to touch on some of these things. And I think this is where, in the use case development phase, and we've landed on 5 co-sponsored challenge statements, but this is where some of these, I guess, just opportunities for the industry as well to realise that, this might feel like a very insular problem at times when you are just battling with internal data, internal reporting, internal understanding of what the landscape is. But once, the industry do begin talking to each other, it can quite quickly boil down to the same challenges faced time and time again. And that's why the value of this kind of programme does come into it, because whilst there's 5 use cases tabled, focusing some of which on these topics that you've just mentioned there, Charlotte, around, staying ahead of evolving tactics, staying ahead of evolving regulations, staying ahead of the just evolving landscape, there's a real opportunity to then bring that to life. But it really does just ring true that the ecosystem as a whole are facing a lot of the same challenges. And as we've, laboured time and time again throughout this call, collaboration is, the biggest key to help us. So they are touched on in these cases. And I won't give any spoilers because obviously they're being released on the day that the podcast is coming out and everybody can take a look at them then. But it would be good, I guess, Paddy, Brian, to get your insights on how you see that happening internally. And again, where you'd like to see that go externally as the landscape continues to evolve.
If I go first, I think that staying ahead of threats is an interesting way of looking at this. I don't think we're ever going to know what the criminals do next. They are very, very agile. They will pivot to new technologies, new mechanisms, new events that have happened in the news. They'll change the script so that those lies feel personal, so they feel current, so they feel genuine. Where we can tackle this threat is by improving the speed at which we share information, both between organisations, between sectors, between, law enforcement and the private sector, because that allows us to share a response. So what happens in one business, what happens in one organisation when it's identified, that organisation will put in a response and it will be reactive to what they're seeing. By sharing that data, by sharing that information around the threat with others, it allows the other people within the ecosystem to take a proactive response and to be ahead of the threat. So it's not something that we can achieve in silos. It's something that we need to achieve together.
I think, within BT, I'm quite fortunate insofar as we have a relatively mature scams initiative. We have the most senior stakeholder, the chief executive. We work across all of the business units. Picking out here for consumer, where I represent the consumer division, working across our business division as represented by global banking. We look across every channel, because we have to take a multi-channel approach, because if we defend one channel to the exclusion of others, we're just going to get done over in a heartbeat. So we look at email, SMS, IP, voice, digital voice, PSTN, the lot. And we have a big stakeholder group that comes together regularly. We have a plan, which we're in the middle of rewriting for next financial year. And we have that stewardship, and that's how we push forward. And then within that sort of overall piece, then we have the outreach bit, which I tend to lead, with stakeholders like yourself, Charlotte, where we try and bring in, bring a view of what we're doing, improve what we're doing, not only but to be seen to be the most trusted connector.
Thanks all for sharing on that perspective. So, Lauren, I guess I would like to just hand back to you as we begin to wrap up the first episode. Have you got any closing statements or kind of key call-outs around FRIL for the listeners?
I think just the main call-out would be, for those that are exploring this topic, whether it be in the emerging tech ecosystem, whether it be more broadly, from an industry perspective or even from an academia perspective, the programme is, built in a way that allows for exploration of all areas of the stakeholder jigsaw puzzle. And I think especially looking at the use cases, some of which we've touched on in this call, but more broadly, the opportunity that there is for, collaboration to get closer to the industry insights that we've shared, some of which on the call and we'll continue sharing in the podcast series, is just such an important time to join us in the programme, to get involved in it, to get closer to these insights and to understand how we can best work together to solve some of these really difficult problems. It's a really, really important topic, and one that I think, just looking at the passion of the stakeholders that are on board already, there's just such scope to achieve some really great outcomes. So My final call would just be for those that are interested in coming on board in whatever capacity, whether that be as an innovator within the tech ecosystem, whether it be as a mentor, whether it be as an observer, to join some of the sessions across the other tracks of activity, then please do get in touch and reach out, and we'd love to have you on board. But other than that, just thanks, Charlotte, for your hosting, and thanks, Brian and Paddy, for joining.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing that. Do we have any closing thoughts from yourself, Brian and Paddy?
For me, I'd say have ideas, have brave ideas, but do give us use cases, please.
And Paddy, anything from yourself?
I think I would just build on what's already been said. I mean, if you need any more motivation, any more direction than Lauren and Brian have already given there. Specifically, when we think about fraud, I would say that there is a right time and a right lie for everybody, and that is it is something that can impact every single person in society. We are all susceptible if given the right combination of lies and the time in which it reaches us. So if you have an idea and you're wanting to build that, think about all of the people that are in your life. Think about your family members, think about your friends and your loved ones, because they could all be targeted by this crime. So, do have that bravery, as Brian says, and step forward with those ideas, and let's see if we can achieve something together.
Thank you so much. Great closing words. Thank you, Brian, and big thank you to Paddy as well for joining us for the first episode. We do have the next one. We're taking a little break over the Christmas period, so our next episode will come to you on the 13th of January, where we'll have more exciting guests joining us as well. Thanks so much, all of you, for being a part of it today, and back to you, Mikhail.
Charlotte, that was very interesting and insightful. Again, thank you for hosting this episode. And if our listeners want to work with us and some of the largest financial institutions in the UK, some of the best universities, just go to fintechscotland.com and apply for our innovation call. That's all we've got time for today, and we'll be back with you for another episode very soon. Bye-bye.